Alright, she says she's recording. I was normally going to do this on my typical camera, but it appears the battery's dead on that, and I didn't bring the charger home. So, anyway, it's not about the video quality anyway. Just turn the lights off and don't even look at the screen. This is a story. And I actually was thinking about writing this down, but I decided to do a video on it because sometimes it's easier just to put the headphones on and sit back and, I don't know, just listen. But I don't know what the name of the story is. Oh, The Slaughter. Maybe that's the name of the story. It's going to be a long story. Anyway, this weekend, today's Sunday. Well, let me go back. Now, this story is going to have a lot of metaphoric divergences. Not divergences. What's the word I'm looking for? Digressions. It's going to have tangential stories, I'm sure, attached to it. Because there's a lot of hidden meaning to all this. But anyway, this spring, my son, now I have 2 boys and a girl in that order, and this is my middle boy, and my girl's going to be involved in the story too. But my middle boy, he decided this spring to raise chickens. I know, just hold tight for a second because maybe there's something of value there. And we've already gone through the processing of the first batch of chickens, which is like 45, I think, or something like that. But anyway, this weekend, Saturday, today's Sunday, it was time to process his second batch of chickens, which was 51, I think he said it was. That's what we did yesterday. And me being in my crazy mental state, I don't know. I was sitting outside and I was thinking, I should write this down. I should write a story. Problem is, when I was in 11th grade and 10th grade, I didn't adopt the gosh darn theories of grammar and punctuation and all that. So for me to write something, it doesn't work very well. So I thought I'd do a video on it. And again, just don't even look at the screen. I wish it was darker out right now, actually. And it might be darker by the time I get done. And just listen. So he had 51, I believe, chickens in this last batch, and it's interesting because the boy, I mean, I'm proud of all my children. My children all turned out crazily. My children all turned out amazingly. That's the word. Amazingly unique and with qualities that I never thought that they would have. I'm very, very proud of them. Not every parent would say that, right? But I don't mean that way. It's just weird. They've exceeded what I've been able to teach them, which is an interesting thing. But anyway, so he ordered chicks, right, online. 50 some odd of them. I think he only lost 1 or 2, and that happens, It's an interesting thing. And for the vegans and vegetarians out there, this story is probably something that you're not going to enjoy in the factual details. Well, I think you should still listen, because, like I said, there's going to be digressions and tangential things here. It's just, I was sitting outside and I was thinking about it. It's like, all right, let's document this, Jim. So he raises these chicks. I mean, we're talking chicks. Okay, orders them, come through the mail, takes care of them. Remember, he came to the shop, I think, well, this season anyway, at least once. His heating system from the previous season he had trouble with it, trying to keep the heat regulated to keep the chicks protected. And it's kind of funny, and I shouldn't be moving around because it's not dark enough for you not to see me. And we created this shroud, and he raised these chicks. These chicks are crossbreeds. I think they're Cornish rocks or something like that. They're a white chicken when they get done, but they're a meat chicken. And that's the point of this story. It's called the slaughter, right? I think. It doesn't seem like the right name, but they're a meat chicken. They turned out white. I think they're Cornish rocks, and forgive me, it wasn't my job to do the research. He did that. He did it on his own. Weird. I spent so much time trying to get off the farm. I'm an engineer, and I won't get into the details of professional life and all that. I may not look it right now, but I was. I am. It's just I don't buy into the game anymore. So he did the research, and it's the same breed hybrid that we processed last time, which was in the spring. And he protected them, kept them warm, fed them, kept them clean, kept their bedding clean. It's just a weird thing. And he knew what he was doing. He wasn't raising a pet. They didn't have any names, although he would identify a couple of them. There was a few of them that just had different physical traits. And that's when you know that you're a human being. I mean, even though he was raising these chickens for meat, end of conversation there. There was still a few that I'm sure caught his attention, and he would recognize them. So I don't know if it's 12 or 13, 14 weeks. I mean, he raises them for the time that it takes for them to mature. And then this Saturday, actually last Saturday, but it didn't happen, but this Saturday it was like, all right, they're mature, and it's time to process them. Now, this boy of mine, he's kind of just doing it. I don't know how to explain it. He's doing it because it's right. I mean, his family, he lives with his mom most of the time. Well, all the time now. Not always, but all the time now. And, they, just like me, we eat meat. And it's like, well, I can do this. I can go out and spend $2 on a chick and raise it up and then fill the freezer and feed my family, which is his mom and her boyfriend and the other two of my children that are home whenever they are, and a couple, and me too. I can do this. It's a start. It's just kind of a thing. But anyway, sorry about that. So he bought 50 some odd chicks. I think he only lost one in the process this time, which is good. That means he did a good job. Kept them warm, kept them safe, raised them. They were out in, this cage system that he built. They're not free range because he has to protect from the coyotes and all that kind of stuff. And he would be moving, I never really witnessed all this, but he'd move this, he'd move it. He was like very attentive. He's very much like his maternal grandfather and a little bit kind of crazy. But he took care of things and raised them up full grown. And then Saturday, just yesterday, it was time to process them. And the last time, early spring, he had 40 some odd that lasted out of the batch. So he's done better this time. And, oh my gosh, the phone, I can't have the phone going off. Like I said, last Saturday was time to process, and just stay along with me because I think there might be some hidden meaning in this, because it affected me more than just a parent. It affected me more than just a human being. It affected me more than just an herbivore. So that's why I'm sharing the experience with you. So Saturday, it's like, hey, we're gonna take care of these chickens. It's supposed to be at 8 o'clock. My world, I don't sleep well, and there's a whole other story involved to that, depression and suicidal thoughts and things like that. So 8 o'clock rolled around, 7 o'clock rolled around, and like, oh, no, I can't move, and I didn't even get moving until 10. And it's like, his sister was calling me because his sister helped him this time. And his sister was calling me. He's like, "Are you coming down?" And then his mom even called me. "Are you coming down? Are you gonna help Carter with these chickens?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm trying. So anyway, I didn't get there till 10. Bad dad, but I tried. Well, it was happy for me. I showed up at 10 o'clock, and he's just barely getting going. I'm like, "Sorry, I'm late." He goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. We didn't even get moving until a few minutes ago." So I wasn't the only one having a hard time getting moving that morning. And they went out and gathered up 26. I think there was 51, so 26 and 25. I think that's what the batches were of the chickens. And I'm not sure. He had this wagon, and there was a crate, and it wouldn't surprise me because this is who this boy is, if he bought whatever crate it was. He probably bought it just to move the chickens from where they were living in relative, not free range because they had to be protected, but they were, Jesus, a couple 100 yards up in the field, and he moved them every day and all that kind of stuff. They brought 25 chickens down. Now, interestingly, in this particular story, because the first batch was mostly my son and I processing them over multiple days. It took, I don't know, multiple days. But on this particular day, yesterday, my daughter was there, who's 18 right now, and her boyfriend was there, who may not be as not experienced, but acclimated with this kind of thing as much as, well, nobody is actually. It's kind of new to all of us. I mean, when I was, I don't know, young teenager, all I can remember are 2 turkeys that my dad slaughtered, and that was the old way: rope around the neck, cross chop and block, chop the head off. The turkey goes flopping down the hill, and then you pick it up and you pluck it for a few hours. I think 2 times. That's all I remember. So I mean, even this 50-year-old man that kind of grew up out in the redneck world, he still wasn't that experienced. And my boy, did this studying and things like that. But again, those are what's the word? I keep forgetting the word. Not tangents. Well, I'll call it a tangent this time. Divergences, something. I forget the word now. So I get there. They go out and collect 25 chickens. It started off, my daughter and I, we were going to do the processing. Now, she just went off to school to learn veterinarian, to become a veterinarian. So the first processing, she was like, I don't like this, and she didn't hang around long. But now that she's committed to understanding animals and healing them, that's what her purpose is, but understanding them is the first thing. It's like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to help out. And her boyfriend was there, and he helped out too. So that was very. I was proud of her for doing that, because it's not a pleasant thing to do. So the first 2 or 3 birds. Now, my son, it's not like neck over the chopping block, chop the head off, and the bird flops around for a bunch of times. I mean, my son invested in an automatic plucking system, and he's this is the second time through, and I show up and they're just getting started, and he's got the processing tables all set up and the plucker all set up, and if you don't know, and I know it's cruel in a way, especially to people that are vegetarian or vegan, it's cruel in a way what we did yesterday. But at the same time, it's also we tried to do the most humane. Killing anything and calling it humane is an oxymoron. I think that's a good term. But he had actually, from the first experience, learned from that, and he had a much more, like almost an assembly line, not to, not to at all minimize what we were doing, but just to make it as efficient as possible. Um, and they came back with 25 birds in this cage that I think he bought just to transport them a few hundred yards from where they were very well taken care of and protected, actually, from coyotes and things, to where we did the slaughter. And in the year before, the season before, the process before, we built cones. And if you don't know anything about the processing of chickens, again, in the olden days, like when I was a kid, head over the chopping block, chop the neck off, and the thing flops around, and it's just a crazy thing. But there's a system in which you can hold the chicken into a cone, or the bird into a cone, and we had created those in the season before, and he had that process. He had 2 cones set up, and again, what's the right word to use? Well, you place the bird in the cone, and then hopefully in the most humane way, which again is just a crazy thing to say, humanely kill something. It's just crazy. In a most humane way, terminate that animal's life in a way that makes the meat, which is what we're after. We're harvesting meat, which there are many industrial systems that do that. And this is a personal system. There's a cone, and anyway, and again, this is going to happen a bunch of times, and I'm sorry for the video quality, but like I say, close your eyes and just listen to the story. He did the first couple of them, and I said something. I was on the processing table, which again, this is life, dude. If you're a dude or dudettes, if you're a omnivore, this is the way it works. So now let me explain. The bird is exterminated. The head doesn't come off actually at that process. It's the most humane way to do it. Most humane and efficient way to make the meat the best quality. And then it goes through a scalding system. Now the bird is already dead at this point. The scalding system is about 150 to 170 degree water, where you just dip it a few times in the water. What that does is it takes the skin and it releases the feathers, so the feathers can be removed easily. And then my son, he invested. I mean, it was several $100s into this automatic plucker, so he didn't just sit there and pull the feathers off. And the plucker takes, I don't know, 5-10 seconds, and it's a spinning system with water. I don't want to get into it. If you're interested, you can investigate it. So it was a lot of money for him to do it, and thank goodness he did, because I wouldn't sit there and pluck 50 chickens. 10 seconds later, the chicken is almost entirely featherless. Then it goes to the processing table, where we at that point remove the head. Of course, the bird is dead. And then we have to remove the innards and process the chicken and clean everything the way it needs to be cleaned, and then it goes into a bath of ice water typically. So my son, he did, I don't know, the first 3 or 4 of them, and I don't know what happened. It was a weird one of those something, like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And he would answer, but of course he'd never tell you the answer, because that's who he is. He kind of keeps himself to himself. He's a good boy. And I don't know if I was just picking on him for having the easy job or whatever. And I said, well, how come you're the one doing the easy work and I'm sitting here digging? I don't mean to be crude, but it is what it is. It's what you do. And it's what's been done to any piece of meat that you bought off of any shelf in the supermarket. I'm the one digging the innards as delicately as possible out. And he goes, well, I didn't think anybody else wanted to do the slaughtering. And I could tell at that point in time, it's like, I don't think he enjoyed doing that. I mean, they were this big, when he bought them. And he took care of them and raised them, and I think he only lost like one, which is a pretty good, he took very, very good care of them. So I said, hey, I'll do it. That's one of the easier, well, not easier, but less manually intense jobs. So then he went over to the processing table, and I ended up taking care of all the chickens. So he did, I don't know, I would say 3 of them or so before. So, but that's an interesting place to be, and I think it's something that happens to people. Digression alert. I think it's what happens to people when you get into your mid 40s and 50s and you're real. You actually think about what's transpired before you, during your time, and really. And yeah, death is something crazy. I used to hunt. There's a long story there, but I won't get into it. And I would love to. Today was a beautiful day. The sun was shining. It would have been a great day for squirrel hunting. It's September now. But it doesn't take, I never disrespected the concept of hunting. I'm sure my father had a big impact, but who I am, and there's a lot of things about me that transcend the impact of people that have been around me. But to take an animal's life now, even when hunting, even though that's your objective, it's never been a trophy to me. It's always been an accomplishment, because, well, that's why you're there, and it's you against the beast, even if the beast is a rabbit. I won't get into it. It's probably a whole nother story, but never a disrespectful thing. Never, for me anyway, it was never a trophy thing. Oh, I'm gonna go get that big buck. It was never like that. But as I've gotten older, and as I've gotten into my late 40s, and now I'm 50 years old, it's more, gosh, that's the end of that animal's life. It's just, you think about it a little bit more. I don't know. Anyway, there's a digression. I told you it was going to be filled with digressions. So somehow I ended up with the cones and the ending of the life process, and my daughter's boyfriend was doing the scalding and the plucking, which is, again, I explained once before, 150 to 170 degree water, you dip it in 4 or 5 times. Before you know it, the feathers are released. You throw it in this expensive system that my son bought, and it removes most of the feathers, and then it goes on the table, and then they process it, remove the head, remove the innards, remove the legs. Now it's an edible, clean thing. So he did, I don't know, 3 or 4, which means I must have done 40 some odd of them, 48 or something like that, I don't know. And you go out to the cage, where again they had this, well, not free range, but it was a contained and safe system. They collected 26 of them in the first batch, and then they put them in this. It almost looked like a dog crate to me, is what I thought it was, but to transport them from where they were living freely-ish, trying to do quotes on this slow camera, to where we were doing the processing. And I'd grab 3 or 4 of them, and you put them in a tub. And it was weird because, you want to keep the animals relaxed. It's not this, everything under cellophane came from a living animal. And I could see it in my son's eyes, and of course my daughter. I mean, she's a sensitive person, and she doesn't want to kill anything, but at the same time, she's an herbivore. No, sorry, omnivore. And because of her achievements towards adulthood, she's now a veterinarian, and she was very interested in the anatomy within this animal. I was very proud of her. She was very interested in the anatomy with this animal, and the fact that she was sitting there and and there's no other way to say it. And unless you've done it, you live in kind of in a fantasy world. I mean, you need to reach in and grab all of the innards and remove that, and it's not an easy thing. There's pieces, parts that want to stay where they want to stay, and yeah, it's crazy, but it is what it is. So back to my point. There's another digression. I don't know what it was. I'm not sure if he was uncomfortable or not as comfortable with the ending of their lives, because he was the one that they looked at when he would give them feed and water. And I was proud of him for that. I mean, for that thought. I don't know for sure if that's true, but I was proud of him because, geez, that's heart. That's, man, I raised this animal. I remember when I was a kid. Oh my gosh, there's 100 stories as a kid, but I remember this cow once. We had this. I don't know if it was a steer or a bull, but I think it was a steer. I don't know why I think it was a steer, but anyway. And my father, this is, late teenage, so, he wasn't that old. He was not nearly as old as I am right now, but he had this, I think it was a steer. I don't know why I think it was a steer. But he had this steer that he named Steakums. And when you name an animal you plan on eating, that's probably not a good thing to do. Well, I'm sorry I snorted. What the heck was the name from Charlotte's Web? Oh, I forgot the name of the pig. But you can't name the thing, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean you don't care for it. It doesn't mean it doesn't have its own personality. They're animals. And I don't care how hard of a farmer you are or how hard of a man or woman you are. It's the eyes, actually. They all have eyes. You can see it. And, they may not be the most intelligent animal in the world. Jesus, that's a statement in itself, isn't it? Intelligent based on our interpretation of what intelligent animals are. It's very egotistical. But my old man named this, I think it was a steer. I don't remember. Steakums. And the whole point of having the animal was, at one point in time, to fill the freezer with beef. And I think I graduated high school, went off to college, and Steakums was still around. And I think he was around for a long, long time. It is really funny that, even though you know what the purpose of this not existence, but the purpose of this chapter is, sometimes even the hardened people, it's like, yeah, I don't know if they ended up eating Steakums or not. I think they did. Why? I mean, that was the point of it. Anyway, I don't remember for sure if they did. So we got 26 chickens sitting in the crate. My boy does a few of them, and then we have this exchange where it's like, maybe he's not as comfortable doing that, or he preferred doing the processing, the cleaning of the chickens. My daughter's boyfriend, he was like, okay, I don't want nothing to do with the killing, and I don't want nothing to do with the guts, which is okay. And I was proud of what he did. He did a great job doing the scalding and the plucking. So I picked up the knife, and I won't lie to you, it's an interesting thing, because you grab a live animal. Like I said, I go out to the crate, I grab 3 or 4 chickens, I put them in a plastic tub, move them to the processing area. And I told you my son made cones, so you would put the chicken into the cone. And I'm going to be detailed now, and I don't mean to. This isn't. Let me. But listen, even though if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, listen to the whole story. So you put the chicken in the cone. The cone kind of keeps chicken from flopping around, and in some very, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. I don't mean to pause. I don't hate to have pauses in my videos, but you swaddle a baby. You know what I mean? It protects them. It relaxes them. You know what I mean? So you put them in this cone-shaped thing, which prevents them from moving around, which is straight up your purpose. You don't need them flopping around. I mean, I don't know if you can see or not, but I can't see anyway. I got scars from chickens scratching my arms. They don't want to be handled. Chickens aren't like pets. You don't. Well, some of them can be actually, but they, these weren't. These were like, hey, this is. I was in my world. I was happy as can be, and I don't mind bearing the scars. I hope I don't get infected from them. But they deserve to fight. And I'll be damned if I didn't talk to every single one of those damn birds as I was putting them in the cone, because they didn't like going into the cone. Once they were there, they kind of settled down because they felt protected. But everyone, I'm like, I'm sorry, dude, man. I wouldn't want to be doing, yeah. And then what you do is when they're in the cone, again, this is it. This is the way it works. And this is, quite frankly, the way it was done that day, yesterday. As cruel as it is. I don't know. It's weird. I was talking to the birds. It's like, I don't blame you. I'm sorry. And, thank you and all that kind of stuff. My dog's sneezing. What's he sneezing for, doggy? The end of the cone was the bird's neck. And that was one of the things in the first season of processing that my son and I had to work out, because you don't want the bird to suffer. You can't chop its head off. You chop its head off. And this is just freaking anatomy and the reality of omnivore existence. Once you sever the spine, the muscular system, there are autonomous muscle reactions, but you don't want to sever the spine because that stops the heart from beating, or it might. And to get the best quality meat, which is not like, hey, look at me, I got the best quality meat. It's like to be able to utilize this animal's life preserve human life, if you're an omnivore or a carnivore. I don't think any of us are carnivores. So you need to come up with a way to exterminate the chicken's existence, to kill the chicken in a way that allows them to bleed, but also in the most quickest, in the fastest manner. So every single one of those 40 some odd animals that I killed yesterday, I'd feel their neck, and I'd be talking to them. I don't know why. I'm a communicative person. Like, I'm sorry, dude. I know. Relax. It's okay. And you find the right spot, and I won't lie to you. You take it, hopefully the sharpest knife you have. You don't remove the head. It's not like in the processing plants where they just have clippers. The poor animals go down this conveyor line, and there's just knives chopping their heads off in hundreds of hour, minute, who knows. This man, looking into the eyes of this bird's like saying, what the frick's going on? This animal, this life. And I felt where the neck muscle and the spine were, and then there's the jugular that you're after. It's the most efficient way for everybody. So you feel it, and there isn't a single time, 40 some odd of them I did, none of them without thought. And you find that transition point between the muscle and where the jugular would be. Pierce that and remove it quickly and slice quickly. And I don't mean to offend anybody, and it's okay if you are. I don't blame you. It's an interesting thing, especially when you're my age and you're contemplating death and all that stuff. And you see humans being killed every day overseas. Straight up, your objective, if you do a good job, is there's a steady stream of blood. And the bird's eyes are open. And they're looking at you. No, they're not looking at you, but they're open. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And if you don't feel bad, that's when you need to question. Not that I'm saying that you don't accept and have to detach yourself, because it's a horrible thing that you're doing. But I think even the hardened, those that plop the chicken in the conveyor belt, the freaking knife, they don't see it. You know what I mean? They did their job, chicken in the conveyor belt. But when you do it firsthand, hand, your force, quickly, Chandler, quickly. Make sure it's right. Don't make them hurt more than they need to. And you do that 40 some odd times. And the only objective in my mind at that point in time, was to make it as humane as possible in the brutality that it was. It's crazy. And they bleed out in buckets and stuff like that to collect the blood. And I'll be damned. And this is reality. This is people say live life. They don't understand. Reality situation is each bird, in this case, just like each human being, it's different. And there were some that fought hard. They fought. And some that, I don't know, just kind of went peacefully. It was a weird thing, especially for me, being clinically suicidal in thought, although probably not in action. The birds have eyelids, and during this process, it wasn't instantaneous. Now you might chop their head off and say, "Hey, look at me! That was it. It's done." They ain't friggin' done. Jesus. Or you go buy that meat under cellophane, and I didn't do it. Well, you know what? I did it. My family did it to feed their family, because we're omnivores. But it doesn't happen instantly. And in order to preserve the quality in order to make sure that you can use as much as that animal as possible, to respect that animal as much as possible by using as much of it as possible, accepting your part. That's, it's easy to turn around and say, okay, what's next? But sometimes you watch them and you see, and it's weird. Those birds have eyelids very similar to we do. Well, it seems like. It's very easy to associate to that. And it doesn't happen instantly. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you it did. There's no way to instantly do it. And there's a stage, and in the first processing this spring, my daughter was very much more sensitive to it, and she didn't like it, which nobody should. And there's this stage where they bleed out, and then all of a sudden their feet start going like crazy. And I looked at her and I said, "Now listen. I've heard stories. I've never seen a human being die, but I've heard stories of human beings going through like a semi-natural death, and they go to a place in their brain, and they say things even as they're dying that it's just like those happy places or those memories, you know." And I taught my daughter in the first processing of the chickens this spring, and we say it still today. Their feet start going, and it's like, yeah, they're running through a field, happy. And that's what their brain's doing. And we may be stupid in thinking that, but you know what? I don't think so. I think at some point in time you get to the point where you're close to ending your existence, and you go through the things that just meant so much. 40 some odd times over and over. 51 total. 40 that I did. Not a single time did I disrespect it. There's only one time, and that's the bird that did all this damage. I wish you could see it. I can't see the camera. He scratched the crap out of me. He fought like a son of a gun, so I honor that. I'd fight too, you son of a gun. That's what I probably told him. I said, dude, I don't blame you. Fight away, scratch away. Oh, man, he hurt me, though. But it happens hundreds of times a minute without any of us seeing it. And you have to remember that. My boy bought these chicks, raised these chicks, fed these chicks, moved them around their enclosure. Again, they were enclosed to protect them, but he would move them every day. I mean, this kid's a little neurotic when it comes to that. And we harvested them. It was interesting. Like I said, my daughter's boyfriend did the scalding and the plucking, which was, an automatic plucker, and I was proud of him because it's not his world typically, I don't think, and he did well. He held up well. I won't tell you. I mean, geez, I'm 50 years old and I've killed a few animals, and well, it's like being up on a roof. Like I tell people when we're putting a roof on a house or something, or I have my kids up especially. The day that you're afraid, the day that you stop being afraid, being up on a roof, is the day you need to get off the friggin' roof. Right? Because you're going to get hurt. And the day that taking animals' life doesn't affect you, and that's when you need to question yourself. But we had this process, and her boyfriend did the scalding and the plucking, and then they went on the table. And my son and my daughter, we ended up, eventually, they were each processing their own chicken from start to finish, which, just points straight up. You got to remove their head. You just got to do it. So we had a hatchet kind of system to do that, and then you have to slice into their abdominal area. The way we do it, because who eats the tail anyway? We slice the abdominal area, and then we cut in a triangular shape both sides of the tail. Then we reach in as far in as we can, and remove the innards, and the liver and the heart and life and shit if you're not careful. Nobody understands life till you take one and respect it and thank it. And like the esophagus, and you're reaching in, and I mean, you're just reaching into this animal's freaking body. Yeah, of course it's dead, but it's still an animal. It's still a representation of life at one point in time. And to remove that, it's not a physically easy thing to do. And at one point in time, my son and my daughter were both doing the full processing, and we found out that, I mean, this is going to sound cruel, but the lungs of a chicken are embedded into the rib cage, and the kidneys are embedded into two cavities. And she was, for some reason, able to remove the lungs and the kidneys much more efficiently than any of us, well, either my son or I. So we ended up working out a system where one of us, and again, every once in a while I get to the point where there's 3 or 4 animals ready to be processed, and they were backlogged. So I would stop doing what I was doing and then go over and go ahead and start processing. And it got to a point where we realized that the most efficient way was for my son or I to do the main processing, the removal of most of the innards, the removal of the tail, and get all that stuff out, and then pass that over to my daughter, who would remove the lungs and the kidneys, and I then clean the bird and then put it into the cool bath. And it turned into a process. But at no point in time was she ever like, there were times when she would do the full processing. And I was very, 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 very proud of my daughter, because she loves animals, and that's why you don't become a veterinarian or try to become a veterinarian, like she's in school now, without loving animals. And of course, yes, she was intrigued with the anatomy of the things that she saw, but at the same time, she couldn't be doing the job that I was doing. She couldn't take that animal's life, and I respect that, and I'm very, very proud of her. I know I'm biased when I say this, but I don't know, in my world anyway. Of course, my world is skewed from the geographic location that I've been in for a while. I don't know many women. Well, she is. She's 18 years old. She's a grown woman, and she's proven herself very well. Who has been exposed to that. She didn't grow up with that. I grew up as a friggin' engineer, living in the friggin', it's crazy. And step up and do that. I'm very, very proud of I'm very, very proud of my son for raising these animals, caring for them, and being able to accept their role in our existence. I'm very, very proud of my daughter for not being as involved, but understanding that this is what has to happen. Otherwise, that animal, if she doesn't do a good job, then that animal may not be suitable to keep us alive. And I don't know. It's a weird fucking, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that word. It's a weird thing. And then they have her boyfriend step up and be involved in the process. It was a very interesting character. It was a very interesting exposure of his character. And at one point in time, he said, "I'll never look at chicken ever again the same way." And that's the thing. I mean, I don't care what it is. When you create this thing that you just go to the store and buy, whether it's soap or syrup or meat, you know what I mean, chicken or whatever. Yeah, once you understand that, even if you never do it again, at least you respect that animal a little bit more. It was really, really weird. So anyway, we processed 51 chickens that day. Every single one of them. And I saw their eyes close for it's weird because they close slowly. It's almost peaceful. It was for me in my mental state to see them close their eyes once, close their eyes twice, and then finally close their eyes. It's the kind of peace that it's kind of weird. But afterwards, that night and tonight, and that's why I decided to do the video, is I was thinking, 50 some odd animals. Holy cow, the phone's going off, sorry. 50 some odd lives. If there were humans, what would that mean to you? It would mean totally different to me. But in reality, in the world, in the earth level thought process, it isn't no different. Whether it's 50 humans or 50 friggin' chickens. But to me as a human, there's no way I can ever accept that. But in thinking tonight, it's like, if I just killed 50 spiders, I'd feel the same exact way. There may be a reason to do it. That reason skewed by our own human, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say ego. I don't want to say delusion either. Sense of purpose. So 50 spiders, there's a lot of people out there like, 50 spiders, holy crap, kill them. But if I were to kill 50 spiders or 50 flies or 50 bees or 50 anything living, I wouldn't feel any differently. You don't get to see the whatever it is, ounce or two of blood dripping out of their neck when you kill a spider. But it's still the same. And I was thinking about that, and it's like, yeah, Chandler. No, there's no argument. I wouldn't feel any differently about killing 50 spiders or ants. It's all life. If any one of those entities, you name the smallest entity, 50 of anything, if we had found that moving on Mars, holy sugars. It's life. I don't regret doing it because my boy has fed his family for probably the rest of the year. I mean, not this year, but probably for damn near 6, 8, 10 months till the next batch of chickens. I'm proud of him. Proud of me. I mean, it's not easy to, I'm telling you, it isn't easy because you feel it in the handle of the knife when you do that. You know what you're doing. You look in their eyes until they close. I'm proud of my daughter because even though she didn't terminate the life, she made sure that that life wasn't wasted. Alright? So I'm thinking about this. I'm making a big deal out of something, but not a lot of people in my world anyway. I know there's a lot of people that do it, but there's not a lot of people in my world anyway, and hopefully a lot of people that see this. It's, yeah, the first day that you're not afraid when you're up on a roof is the day you need to get off the roof. The first day that you don't look into that animal's eyes, and whether you say it out loud or not, say thank you. I'm pretty sure all of us do, even the most hardest, what appear to be cold-hearted people. Not cold-hearted, but what's the word? Galvanized people. My ending point is this. As I was saying, I was sitting here tonight. Again, all this happened yesterday. It's like if I killed 50 ants or 50 spiders or 50 anything, I would feel the same way. I really would. Except for humans. I can't get past that. That's not even. But any life. And the final point is this. As I was sitting there thinking about that tonight, if I had cut 50 trees down, I'd feel the exact same way. And people say I sit and ruminate. Ruminate, I love that word. I use it all the time now. Think too much. You think too much, Chandler. The day we realize that cutting off a head of cabbage, which is going to grow back, cutting down a maple tree, oak, whatever, or taking the life of a chicken or a pig or a cow. I can't transcend humans, no. It's just because that would be anti-existence. Alright? We're feeding the humans. So, yeah. But I can tell you with 100% sincerity, if I had cut down 50 trees yesterday, we'd be having the same conversation. And that I find extremely reassuring. That though I may be struggling and lost and trying to understand this world that we're in right now, I'm not as lost as I worry to be. Every life you take, I don't care whether it's a spider, a tree, or a head of cabbage. With respect. For example, I don't mean to pick on my daughter. Daughter was processing the chicken. Right, the head was removed. The innards were still there, and she went to move it, and she squeezed a little bit. But because just the head was gone, the vocal system, I don't even know what it is, the chicken was still there, and she squeezed it and it clucked, I mean, or whatever, like a chicken does. And she's like, that freaked me out, because it's like, is this thing dead or alive? Well, of course it's dead. And then she was doing that 3 or 4 times. You know, but they started laughing about it because it's like weird. I mean, it freaks you out because you think, you hope you're doing the right thing, and all of a sudden this animal acts like it's alive. And until you know that, until you've shot a grouse and cleaned that grouse, and in your hand the heart is still beating, even though it's removed from the animal. Until you realize that it is bigger than you could ever be, then you'll never know the respect of anything living. But anyway, so it was more a scientific kind of stimulation that was going on. I was like, oh, this thing's still clucking. And I looked at her because, I'm sitting here freaking taking the lions. And I said, don't disrespect the animal. Yeah, I understand, but stop. Don't disrespect the animal. I never had to say another word. She said, you're right, I understand. And they moved on with processing the animal. And when you see that understanding of life, and even though you have to take it, never disrespect it, that 18-year-old girl in just a split second instantaneously show, it's amazing. I hope I didn't offend many of you vegans or vegetarians. I just thought I'd share this story. I know it's a long one. Like I said, don't watch the video, just listen to it. It truly is. You can't respect it until you see it go. And when you're the one that made it go, if you haven't found respect for what it was before you took it, you shouldn't be there. If you're not afraid when you're up on a roof, then get the fuck off. And if you don't know what you're actually taking from something, even though it has to be done, hand the knife to somebody else. That's my short story. Hopefully it was something not gross and something that you enjoyed listening to. That's Chandler's Night Thought for tonight. My son fed his family. I helped him do it. His sister and her boyfriend helped him do it. I'm not proud of it, but it's what needed to be done. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them. Y'all have a good night.